Holy crap, boys, girls, in-betweeners, welcome back. We're doing something a little bit different on the channel today. I'm actually making a little bit of a primer for how to play as Juri, because I get a lot of questions from people who are asking, how does this character work? Why do you play the way that you do? Because when I like to play this game, I like to do crazy shit. I like to press all the buttons. Look at all those buttons. I like to press all the buttons. I like to just make cool shit happen and just do random crazy things, and that's fine. If you want to play that way, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, enjoy the game the way that you want to enjoy it. But if you want to play the game a little bit of a higher level, there are things that you have to understand about how the game and the character works. So I'm making this as a little bit of a primer for how to use Juri. Juri is one of those weird characters that she's actually quite popular in terms of just being a character, but for people who actually want to actually use her, not so much. There aren't very many people who actually will use Juri, especially at high levels. So I'd like to try and change that if people are actually interested by this character. So I'm not going to cover anything that's too basic, things like I'm not going to cover anything too basic, things like how the gauges work or things like that. There are other videos out there that do that better, which I will link to in the bottom of this video in the comments. Want to know how to play Juri? This is basically what I'm going to try and do here to show you. I'm not the best Juri in the world, I'll be the first person to admit that. There are people who are much better than I am, but I want to try and do my bit just to help people out. So, that said, let's just get into this. So, the normal attacks that are actually useful, I'm not going to cover off all the attacks because that'll take all day. So, her light punch can combo into itself, her crouching light, and a standing light, and a crouching light punch as well, can all combo into themselves. So those are useful for combos a little bit later, which we'll get into. Her standing medium punch actually takes her forward from where she's standing. If you see where she's standing on that line, it actually brings her forward when she attacks. It's also something that can be cancelled into for combos, so that makes it quite useful. Her crouching punch is an anti-air, which we'll get into a little bit later. Her standing medium kick has good range on it and comes out pretty fast and just edges her forward a little bit every time she does it. So not a bad weapon there. It'll hit twice if you're close, and it'll hit twice again if you're super close. So it's a good move for breaking through armor and things like that as well, because armor, unless it's a red focus, can only absorb one hit at a time. Her crouching version of that is spectacular. It comes out very fast for a medium attack. Comes out very low. See how low she gets when you do that? Fireballs will actually travel over her when you do that. It goes so low. So it's a very good move for just general poking and cancelling in special moves. Her standing heavy punch looks like this. Not so useful. It's just, I know it's a kick, but because she's a Taekwondo user and Taekwondo favors kicks over punches, she actually does that as a kick. It's the same as when you use a boxer, and boxers will do just punches when you hit kick buttons. So her crouching heavy punch is an anti-air, which we'll get into a little bit later again. The use for her heavy punch when you're actually up close is when you're super close, it comes out like this. And as you can see, it puts the opponent into the air, which means they can be comboed after it because they're in a float state. So float states are very useful in this game, and that's one of the reasons why her heavy punch is not completely useless, just this, you have to be very close when you're doing the standing version. So that covers off the standing and crouching normals that she has for the most part. Her jumping attacks are actually useful. Her jumping heavy kick just has a good animation to it, has a good long sort of stretching a leg out sort of thing there, so it's good for getting in on people. Very easy to hit with. Her jumping medium kick sends the hitbox out quite a good way. So that's quite useful, and her jumping leg kick is also quite useful, which just brings down the knee. The medium kick and the leg kick are quite good because they both cross up, they both hit on the far side of the opponent, like so. So she has two cross-ups. Now, if you're not familiar with what a cross-up is, a cross-up means that they have to block in the opposite direction to where they're expecting you to. So normally, whenever you have to block by holding away from the opponent. However, because you're crossing up onto the far side, it means you have to reverse that at the last second. So you're actually, instead of holding away, you'd be holding towards where they were a moment ago. So that's what makes cross-ups so good in this game, because it helps to confuse your opponent into which way they need to block. Now, you might say to yourself that two cross-ups are actually good enough, but actually Juri has 3 cross-ups. The third one is actually quite hard to hit. It's a jumping heavy punch. You'll hit in the front, or at the right distance, and I might miss this because it's very hard to gauge. There you go, it'll hit in the back. There we go, hits on the far side. Her jumping heavy punch will cause a soft knockdown, so you can't follow up after it. But because it's so ambiguous, like that one just landed straight on his head. I don't even know which way he would have had to block in that instance. It's a good one just for trying to mix your opponent up when they're waking up. And by mixing up, if you don't know what that means, mixing up is when you just try to confuse your opponent. You try to make them guess. Because the number one thing in a game like this is to try and be unpredictable. Unpredictability is your best friend. Unpredictable is different from being random. You don't want to be random, you just want to be unpredictable. So, that covers off her jumping attacks with one exception, actually two. The second last one is her jumping neutral kick. So when you jump forward, her jumping heavy kick comes out like that, but when you jump up straight up, which is neutral, it comes out on both sides. So this is a very good attack just for when you're not sure which side they're going to be on, because it doesn't matter which side they're on, it still hits. So it doesn't matter if he moved back and forth beneath me, he would still get hit because both her legs go out in different directions. And her last one, so if we have Ryu doing a jumping heavy kick, and playback, we can meet him mid-air with the jumping medium punch. The jumping medium punch is really good because you can see how weird a animation she goes into. Like she throws her body up and hits downwards with her arm. It makes it very difficult to hit. And also, it puts the opponent into a float state, so you can follow up. So that move is very good for hitting people in the air. There's only a couple of characters, probably 3 or 4 in this game that I know of, that have moves that are better in the air than that one. Pretty much any other time you're going to knock them out of the air. So that's a very good move for using in the air-to-air situation. So that's her air-to-airs covered. We can look at going into her special move. Now, the thing that really separates Juri from pretty much every other character in this game is her fireballs, because every other character in this game will just throw out a fireball, like Ryu is about to do here. So I'm sure you've all seen Ryu's fireball before, but we'll just do it for the sake of argument. He throws out a fireball. I'll save that for later. Juri, on the other hand, throws out her fireballs like this. There's 2 parts to it. Her leg goes up, and the fireball goes out. Now, there's a couple of reasons for this. The first one is that, as you can see here, I'm actually storing the fireballs. I actually now have 3 fireballs stored by holding down each button instead of letting it go. I can let go of those buttons now at any time to release a fireball. So you can always, because there is no indication as to which fireball you're storing when she lifts her leg up, you force your opponent to guess as to what fireball you've stored, because a medium fireball has the same storage animation as a low fireball. So your opponent's always going to be guessing whether it's safe to jump or whether it's safe to walk forward every time you store a fireball. And they know that you have one stored, and best of all, you can have it stored until you let go of it. However, if you let go of it in the air, now I can just hit buttons again, because you can't throw fireballs in the air, so you've just lost those stores when you're in the air. They never know when you've actually let go of your fireball. So it's a mind game with your opponent as to whether you actually have fireballs stored or whether you don't. Because I may have let go of them in the air. In this instance, I didn't let go of them in the air. So it's a great way to just keep your opponent guessing and keep those mix-ups going as to whether you have fireballs stored at any time or not. Now, some other things to remember with the fireballs is that the low fireball always goes the furthest. You can see that almost touched Ryu there. If I move a little bit closer, that will hit Ryu. On the other hand, her medium fireball goes higher. It doesn't travel as far. It travels a little bit less. So you can see we just move forward a little bit, still disappears. Move forward a little bit, just touches there. And the higher fireball doesn't go very far at all because it's an anti-air fireball. It still goes a decent distance, but it doesn't go quite as far as the other two. She has EX variations of these fireballs. So the low fireball, again, low fireball goes the farthest. We have the medium fireball, which again does not travel quite as far, and the high fireball, which travels about the same distance as, they all travel pretty much the same distance as their regular versions. Some special properties are if we get the opponent to crouch, The medium fireball travels over his head, but the X version does not. So that's an interesting property there that they changed in Ultra. And they all do not require her to store a fireball first. You cannot store any X fireball, you can only store a regular fireball. The X's always come out straight away. So that's those. Next on the block is her pinwheels. So we have the light pinwheel, travels a little bit, medium, travels further, heavy, travels the farthest. Now, light one you can generally get away with sort of throwing out, as it's not safe by any stretch of the imagination. When I say safe and unsafe, there's a science to that regarding the amount of frames of animation a move has, and whether it's has enough on block to be safe or not. But really, what safe and unsafe means at the end of the day is if a move is safe, your opponent can block it and they can't punish you afterward. Whereas if a move is unsafe, you can do the move and there will be a period of time after you're finished where they can punish you for it. So you want to try and always be as safe as possible with your moves and not as unsafe as possible with your moves. Light version is still unsafe, but there's such a small margin to punish her in that it's quite difficult for most people to punish that on reaction. Medium version is pretty unsafe on block. The heavy version is quite slow to start up. You can see her sort of, if you actually watch, you can see her sort of throw herself a little bit first before she goes into that. And it's easily the most unsafe of all versions, but of course does the most damage as a trade-off. That's all three versions though. So you really don't, you can use this a little bit randomly if you want to, but I wouldn't use it too much. In the other versions, the medium and the heavy, you really don't want to use outside of combos. The great inside of combos, if you can combo into it, like crouching medium into heavy pinwheel, great. Fantastic. Here, jump, crouch. Let's try again. There we go. Jumping, crouching, and heavy pinwheel is a great combo, but you need to actually combo into those moves to make them worthwhile. The EX version of her pinwheel looks like this, and she just goes crazy. La, 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 la. I love that when she does it. Now, the interesting property of this move is we'll show you the fireball that I stored up earlier. Is that it is completely immune to fireballs. They just pass through it like she's not even there. You can do it all day. It's a stupid way to waste it, but you can use it to avoid fireballs completely. The reason that I say that is there are occasions when you're playing against people who are good at this game who will try to use fireballs after you get knocked down and force you to block a fireball for chip reasons or for pressure reasons or anything like that. And if you know that they're going to do it, it'll even work on Ultra Fireballs. If we get Ryu to do his Ultra Fireball, passes right through. So any character that even has an Ultra Fireball, you can just get passed right through you like you're not even there. So it's great for avoiding situations where you're either going to get chipped out from damage, or if you're being forced to block that for pressure reasons and things like that. It's a great way to catch people off guard, because there's so many people online that you'll run into that do not realize that she has that tool. So it's something to keep in mind. Her next move that we should be aware of is her dive kick. So you have the light version, the medium version, and the heavy version, which travels the furthest. They're all pretty much the same in terms of recovery and startup. It's just really the distance that you want to use overall. I mean, they do have differences, but it's very slight and not really worth going into at the moment. So, her dive kick is very different to other people in this game. Other people in this game will always use her dive kick, will always use their dive kicks, I should say, for pressure, for setting up combos. She can use hers for pressure and setting up combos, but really, the primary reason that you want to use it is to punish fireballs. So again, we'll go back to Ryu playing back. Ryu throws his fireball, and we punish him for it. So it is a fantastic tool no matter what distance you're at to punish fireballs. Yeah, whatever, but you get the idea. So that's really the primary reason that you want to use her dive kick. Her dive kick does have other uses, which I'll get into in a moment. But the EX versions of that, which is you can do any kind of version, you can do the light version, You can do the medium version, or you can do the heavy version. But what makes these ones interesting is that they'll cause a wall bounce. So when he lands on the other side, you can do a combo if you want to. Oh boy. Recorder's curse, people. There we go. So you can combo off of that wall bounce, but it's a risky move to do because you have to be sure that the move's going to hit, otherwise you're wasting a bar of your super to do a move, which is not safe, because that move is incredibly unsafe should you decide to do it just at random. So you really want to use that as a fireball punish if you're going to use it. But I generally just avoid using it because it has the other property that it has is that it puts them in a float. So it does the same thing as the other float moves, where you can follow up with an attack. You can follow up with an attack if you're fast enough. Don't worry, I'm gonna get this. One more time. There we go. So you can follow up with an attack if you are fast enough. But you can do that with the regular version as well. You just have to be a little bit faster with how you do it. You know what? I'm not gonna. It is possible. Just take my word for it. There we go. So they both have the float state property of them. You just get a little bit more float when you use the EX version of her dive kick. She can instant air her dive kick as well. It's just a little bit tricky to do. There we go. That's a very tricky move to do. So that's the EX dive kick. The last move to talk about is her parry. So her parry works by doing this. Looks like nothing, but when she gets hit when she's doing that, it will allow her to basically escape from any move that she's being hit with. So, if we record, and again just have Ryu jumping in, we can now parry our way out of that. And depending which button you use, you'll go forward, you'll go back, or in Heavy Punch's case, you'll go up. So, this move is very good for escaping from various things. The X version of it will allow you to go diagonally if you wish to. You can go diagonally forward. She can parry Ryu's Ultra if she wants to. So that really takes people by surprise a lot of the time, because they just don't expect, you know, of all things, Ultra moves to be parried. That's not good to go backwards. Don't try going backwards because you'll get hit by the rest of it. You can go up though. So any move that's not arm breaking will be parried. We can talk about her super next. Her super is basically this. It's not very good. As you can see, the last two hits of that missed because I didn't do it at point blank range. It only hits completely at point blank range, which is bad enough. If you're too far away, it doesn't hit at all. We only have two hits there, and if I do it at full screen, it'll miss completely. So, in terms of like supers in this game, it's probably one of the worst ones, I would just say. I'm sure there are ones that are way worse than that, but they can't be too much worse. So it's not something you want to use very often. The only time that you would really use this super is as part of an anti-air combo. Actually, not out of that. You do it out of this. Whoop. One more time. There we go. That's really the only time you'll ever find yourself using her super. Just because it's just not that good. Which by itself is not a bad thing as well, because it means that you can really just spend EX bars for other things and not have to worry about trying to save up 4 bars for her super. So, that said, her ultra moves are twofold. First one is her Feng Shui engine. Now, before I show you her Feng Shui engine, I want to tell you about it. Basically, what it allows her to do is it allows her to A, move around a lot faster, and B, allows her to link together moves that are not normally comboable. So if you look in the corner of the screen and watch me do a light, a medium, and a heavy, the blue, yellow, and red, if I do those 1, 2, 3, they do not combo, because Ryu is set up so that he will block every move after the first hit if it is not a combo. So I can try as hard as I want, and light, medium, and heavy is not a combo. But if I use the magic of the Feng Shui engine, suddenly it's a combo. And you can go into more depth than that. You can do 1, 2, 3, 4. You can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can do 1, 2, 3. We'll start up again. You can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's a pinwheel, which if you're fast enough. There we go. Combo together plenty of moves which are not normally comboable. Now this by itself is pretty good, but what really sets it apart is that it'll allow you to do it off her overhead. So if we do her overhead, which means I have to block high instead of low, overhead into combo. So basically what that means is you can see she dashes, like look how far she dashes when that's going on, it's ridiculous. The dash just becomes incredible. She can dash across the screen like nobody's business. So her mobility becomes ridiculous when that's active, and it allows her to really apply a huge amount of pressure to her opponent when it's active. You know, you can even do it off after, you know, fireballs and things like that. So you can force them to block with a fireball. Try that again. And continue the pressure from there. Ooh, better slow down. Come back to me, Street Fighter. Come back to me. I need you. There we go. Did random slowdown because I'm recording. And I haven't restarted my computer in about 3 days. So, that's how that's Ultra works. Her second Ultra is the Kaisen Daikaru. I think that's how you pronounce it. I've been playing this character for about 4 years and still have no idea. Where she just does sexy damage time. Very sexy. Best way to die. Now, because that's more of your standard kind of Ultra, that means that she is extremely vulnerable to being counterattacked when it's blocked, obviously. So you need to do it as part of a combo. There's a few ways to set up a combo for this, or just to make it more guaranteed, you can use a dive kick. That's the first way you can use dive kick. There's actually a second way you can use dive kick. If you don't want to wait for the wall bounce, you can just do it off a regular version of that. That was the X version. You can't even do it off a normal version of a dive kick. If you're fast enough, you have to be very fast with the normal version in order for it to work. Let's try it one more time. That was too low. That's what happens when it misses. One more time from a little bit further away. There we go. So she can definitely use her dive kicks to set up her Ultra if you are fast and think they're not going to block. Obviously, if they block, you can't just throw out the Ultra because you'll just look stupid. Like I do most of the time. Okay, the last thing that I want to cover with you guys is just a couple of quick bread and butter combos that will work with Juri. Her easiest and most bread and butter combo of them all is her jumping heavy kick, crouching medium kick into pinwheel. So we go 1, 2, 3. That's 272 damage, meterless, which is not too bad just for your standard bread and butter sort of setup. If you want to try and confuse your opponent, you can use a cross-up version of it with the medium kick for a little bit less damage. So that's the most bread and butter of all our combos. Now, if you want to try and get a little bit more damage, you can store a fireball. If you store a low fireball, that's pretty much the tool you're going to use for all of our combos, because it's the easiest one to store. So you can keep it like it's stored pretty much at any time for a combo and still have access to a medium kick, still have access to a heavy kick. If you're using an arcade stick, obviously. If you're using a pad, this is going to be much harder. And be able to use it in a combo. Now, you can, because of the way her combos work, releasing a fireball will reset how the combo works. So normally, you can't do 2 crouching mediums in a combo. It just doesn't work. But if you do crouching medium fireball, you can then do crouching medium again. There we go. So it really just comes down to being able to time this and being able to get your combos down, but you can actually do that, or you can go for an extended version of what you were looking at earlier, which is that. 8 hits for 326 damage. 326 damage is pretty damn good if you're not spending meter. You can throw an XP wheel onto the end of it. Did not mean to do that. But you're not going to get too much more mileage out of it. Let's move him back to the center a little bit. Dang it. One more time. 350 to 326. So you're only looking at an extra 24 damage for using a meter, which is not really worth it. And that's really it for her bread and butter combos. There are some other combos, obviously, outside of that. There are punctuation combos and things like that, but I would like to get into those into a later video. So, if you guys did enjoy this overview of how to use Juri, if you want to play as badly as I do, please leave a comment or a thumbs up, and I will be back very shortly with the next episode of this series. Until then, I will catch you guys later.